Welcome to this deep dive. Today we're going to explore something that I think might just change how you experience the world.
Oh,
It's the power of calmness, especially when things feel, well, completely chaotic.
interesting.
You know, those moments when life
Well,
just throws everything at you at once?
yeah, for sure.
We're going to kind of unpack how to navigate those moments.
Yeah.
Not by just like gritting your teeth and bearing it, but by actually finding this genuine sense of peace.
It is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
We think of calmness as this passive thing, like sitting on a beach.
Right.
But what we're talking about here is much more dynamic. It's an active choice to stay grounded when everything's swirling around you.
Yes, and it's not about ignoring the problems or pretending they're not there.
Right.
It's actually almost the opposite. What we're diving into today suggests that calmness unlocks a different kind of action.
Huh.
One that's more intentional, less driven by those knee-jerk reactions that we all have.
That's a really key point. Think about the times you react without thinking, snapping at someone or making a quick decision when you're stressed. In those moments, are you really in control?
I don't think so.
You're letting your emotions call the shots.
It's almost like we become puppets to our circumstances or even just puppets to our own feelings.
Exactly. And the idea is that by choosing not to react instantly, by creating a little space between, whatever's happening, and our response, we reclaim our power.
I like that.
It's not about suppressing emotions, it's about becoming this conscious observer of them.
Now, you mentioned something earlier that really caught my attention.
What's that?
This idea of calmness as like a pathway to a more spiritual way of being.
Okay.
That sounds a bit paradoxical. How can stillness lead to like awakening?
It is a fascinating concept, one that's explored in a lot of spiritual traditions.
Yeah.
Think about it this way.
Right.
When we're constantly bombarded by external stimuli, by all this noise, it's like our inner wisdom gets drowned out.
So it's like all that noise, all that external stuff, it's preventing us from hearing the more subtle signals from, I guess, our intuition or something.
Yes. And by cultivating calmness, by quieting the mind,
Okay.
we create the space for those whispers of the soul to come through.
I see.
Like turning a radio.
Oh, right.
You have to reduce the static to hear the transmission.
Okay, so I'm starting to see how those two things connect, but what does that actually look like in practice?
Yeah.
Like, how do we move from the chaos of daily life to this state of inner stillness
Right.
and, I guess, spiritual awareness?
Well, there are lots of techniques, but they all kind of revolve around developing a more conscious relationship with our thoughts, with our emotion.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that we're not our thoughts, we're the observer of them.
Okay.
And from that observation point, we have the power to choose.
So it's about creating that space between the stimulus, whether it's like a traffic jam or a tough conversation, and our reaction to it.
Exactly. And in that space is our freedom. The freedom to choose a response that aligns with our values, with who we want to be, rather than just a reaction dictated by our emotions.
I'm already feeling a little calmer just thinking about this.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, it all still feels a bit, abstract.
Sure.
Can you give me a concrete example?
Of course.
Like, what does this look like in everyday life?
Absolutely. Let's say you receive an email that just triggers anger or frustration.
Happens all the time.
Your first impulse might be to fire back a really heated response.
Oh, yeah.
But instead, you pause,
Okay.
you take a couple of deep breaths,
Right?
you observe the sensations of anger maybe in your body,
Yeah.
and you ask yourself, what's the most helpful response in this situation? What response aligns with the person I want to be?
So instead of reacting automatically, I'm consciously choosing my response.
Yes, based on your deeper intentions and your values.
This is really resonating with me. I can see how this approach could transform not only my own inner experience, but also how I interact with others. I'm curious, how does this individual practice of calmness ripple outwards into the world?
That's where it gets really interesting, and that's what we'll explore further in the next part of our deep dive. Welcome back to our deep dive into calmness.
Yeah.
Remember, we're looking at it as an active force, not just a feeling.
Right.
We've talked about how powerful this can be for us individually.
Yeah.
But now, let's widen the lens a bit.
Okay.
How does this impact our relationships, our work, maybe even the world as a whole?
That's the part that I find just mind-blowing. Like,
Right.
I get how staying calm can help me.
Yeah.
But to think it can actually affect things outside myself, That's wild.
It is, and that's where things get really exciting.
Okay.
This isn't just some woo-woo idea.
Right.
There's a real energetic exchange that's happening constantly.
You keep mentioning this energy equation.
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
Well, think of your energy like it's a finite resource.
Okay.
Every time you react, get angry, anxious,
Yeah.
flustered, it's like you're spending that energy.
Okay.
And a lot of times, it's spent on things that ultimately don't matter much.
Oh, tell me about it.
A rude comment getting stuck in traffic.
I know that feeling.
It's like throwing coins into a bottomless well.
I can waste so much energy on stuff that in the grand scheme of things, it's just noise.
Exactly. But here's the thing.
Okay.
By choosing calmness, by not just reacting impulsively, you conserve that energy. It's not about suppressing your emotions.
Right.
It's more like you become a better steward of your own inner resources.
So it's like, instead of squandering my energy on things that drain me,
Yeah.
I can actually direct it toward the things that matter.
You got it. And that's where the ripple effect comes in. When you're not constantly leaking energy through just reacting to everything,
Right.
you have more to invest in your relationships, your work, your creativity,
Right.
just in being fully present in your life.
I like that.
Oh.
It's okay, so I have more energy. But how does that actually impact, say, my relationships? It's not like I can just beam calmness at someone and they'll suddenly chill out, right?
Not quite. But think about it.
Okay.
Have you ever been around someone who is just so incredibly calm?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what's happening around them.
Right.
They just have this stillness about them.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
How does that make you feel?
Honestly, I usually feel a bit calmer myself.
Right. It's like their calmness is contagious.
It really is.
And that's not just a feeling.
Okay.
When you're calm, you're way less likely to trigger someone else's reactivity.
Right.
You're more likely to really listen to them, to respond thoughtfully,
Yeah.
to de-escalate a conflict rather than make it worse.
So it's less about what I'm actually saying
All right.
and more about the energy I'm bringing to the interaction.
Exactly. It's like you're modeling a different way of being in the world.
I like that.
And that can be so powerful,
Yeah.
especially in our close relationships.
I'm thinking about my own family.
Hmm.
We all love each other.
Good.
But let's just say things can get a little heated.
Oh, like families, right.
If I could bring even a little bit more calmness to those moments,
Hmm.
I think it could change everything.
And it's not just family.
Oh,
Think about a workplace where the leader, the boss, whoever, embodies this kind of calmness.
yeah,
It sets the tone,
totally.
respect, collaboration, psychological safety.
That's huge.
Those things directly affect how people work
Yeah.
and their well-being.
It's almost like a leadership superpower.
It is. It is.
And you know, if we zoom out even further,
Yeah.
this connects back to the idea of calmness, creating a more peaceful world.
Right.
It's amazing.
So much of the conflict in our personal lives globally, it all comes from reactivity. If more people cultivated this inner stillness,
Yeah,
just imagine the possibilities.
it's crazy.
It's not about being passive or avoiding things.
Right.
It's about responding to those challenges with wisdom and compassion, rather than just reacting out of fear or aggression.
This is all super inspiring,
Yeah.
but I'm thinking about our listeners, and they're probably wondering, okay, this sounds great in theory,
Right.
but my life is crazy busy. How do I actually make space for calmness?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a great question, and it's one we're going to dig into in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, welcome back to our deep dive into calmness. We've talked about why it's so powerful, how it can ripple out into the world,
Right.
but I think now's the time to get practical.
Good. I like practical.
I think a lot of our listeners are probably out there thinking,
Yeah.
this all sounds great, but my life is crazy, I'm super busy.
Right.
How do I actually make space for calmness in the middle of all that?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And I think it's important to remember, cultivating calmness isn't about adding another thing to your to-do list.
Right, I need that reminder.
It's more about shifting how you approach your life.
Okay, so it's less about finding extra time.
Exactly.
It's more about changing how I use the time I already have.
Precisely.
I can work with that.
And that starts with just becoming aware
Aware
of where your energy is leaking.
of.
You know, those moments when you get hooked by a stressful thought,
Yeah.
when you get annoyed by a coworker or you get sucked into some pointless argument.
Oh, I know those moments.
That's your practice ground.
So I see it, but what does that practice actually look like?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't just snap my fingers and suddenly be calm, can I?
No, of course not.
Especially when things are really intense.
Right, but it is a practice.
Okay.
Like anything new, you have to learn it.
Yeah.
And one of the most powerful tools you have is something we've mentioned before.
What's that?
The pause.
Oh, yeah, tell me more about the pause.
Okay, it's super simple,
Okay.
but incredibly powerful before you react to anything.
Anything.
Yeah, a frustrating email, a snarky comment, even that voice in your head that says, you're not good enough.
Oh, that one.
Just pause.
Okay.
Take one breath.
All right, one breath I can do.
Good. Then just notice what's happening in your body. Is your heart racing?
Yeah. Probably.
Your shoulders tense? Just observe.
Observe, okay.
Don't judge it.
Right.
That pause, that little bit of awareness, it creates space
Space between.
between the stimulus and your habitual reaction.
Oh, so I'm not just on autopilot.
Exactly. In that space, you have a choice.
So instead of reacting without thinking,
Yeah,
I can actually ask myself, what's the most helpful thing to do right now?
precisely.
Maybe it's just taking another breath.
It could be.
Or maybe it's stepping away from the situation for a minute.
Yeah. Or maybe it's choosing a kinder response, a more thoughtful response.
It's like I can hit the reset button
You got it.
and give myself a chance to respond from a more, I don't know, centered place.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, this is starting to feel less like some far-off state of bliss and more like a skill I can actually work on.
It is. It is.
And that's encouraging because, let's be real, life doesn't usually go easy on us.
No, it doesn't.
So what about those really tough times?
Yeah.
The ones that just completely knock us off center? Does calmness actually work then?
It does.
Really?
In those moments, it becomes even more crucial.
Wow.
It's like working out a muscle.
Oh, okay.
The more you practice staying calm in everyday life,
Yeah.
the stronger that muscle gets.
So when those big challenges come along, I'm more prepared.
Exactly. You've built up that resilience.
I like that.
You can access your wisdom, even when things are really intense.
It's not like I'm immune to challenges,
Right.
but I'm less likely to get totally swept away by them.
That's the idea.
This makes it less about avoiding tough emotions and more about facing them with, well, more strength.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
And, you know, it's not just about me.
No, that's the best part.
My calmness, my choice to pause, it affects everyone around me.
Absolutely. Your calmness ripples outward.
I love that image.
It shows how connected we all are.
Yeah.
Even the smallest choice to be peaceful can make a difference.
That's powerful.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
remember this. Calmness is not a luxury. It's a superpower.
I like
A
that.
superpower that lets you live your life with more grace, wisdom, and compassion.
That's beautifully said.
Not just for you, but for everyone you touch.
And to all our listeners out there,
Yeah.
we hope this deep dive has sparked something in you. A reminder that even in a world that feels chaotic,
Right.
you have the power to choose peace,
Yes.
starting from within.
Exactly.
Until next time, keep diving deep.